3 weeks had passed since I laid Harold to rest. The house felt heavier than ever, walls that once echoed with shared laughter now seemed to close in on me. I had kept the funeral flowers in their vases, though they were beginning to wilt, their fragrance replaced by a faint mustiness. I spent my mornings at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug that read "Best Grandma Ever," a gift from Sophie when she was 8. The words now felt like they belonged to another lifetime. On a gray Tuesday morning, as rain traced slow rivers down the kitchen window, the phone rang. "Mom, we need to talk about the house," Patrick's voice said, firm, brisk, and without a trace of tenderness. The same tone he'd used years ago when asking for money during college, only now there was no request, just a decision already made. I murmured a greeting, but my voice felt strange, as though it belonged to someone else. Patrick went on, speaking in clipped sentences. "Too big for you, not practical, time to think about next steps." He spoke like he was discussing a piece of real estate, not the place where I'd built a life. I glanced toward the garden Harold and I had once tended together. The herbs were overgrown, wild without his careful hands. I remembered the afternoons we spent there, sunlight on our faces, and the quiet joy of knowing we had created something together. Patrick's voice broke through the memory, impatient now. "We're trying to help, Mom." But deep down, I felt it, this wasn't help. It was circling. Assessing. And for the first time since Harold's passing, a quiet resolve began to take root inside me. I wasn't ready to give up this house, or myself, so easily. 2 evenings later, Patrick called again. This time, his voice carried a rehearsed warmth, the kind you'd use to break bad news while pretending it was a gift. He said he'd spoken with Elaine over dinner. They had a solution for me. "The house is just too much for you to handle," Patrick began. "Elaine has that finished basement, it's private, has its own entrance, your own bathroom. Cozy. You'd be close to Sophie, and you could help Elaine with meals. It's a win-win." I knew that basement. It flooded every spring until Harold fixed it himself years ago. And I remembered Thanksgiving, when I was seated down there alone while everyone else ate upstairs. I had been the extra chair they couldn't fit at the table. Elaine sent a text shortly after. "Mom, Patrick told me about the plan. It's for the best. Sophie can't wait to have you close." Her words were neatly packaged, like a greeting card, but I couldn't ignore the hollowness beneath them. Sophie hadn't called me once since Harold's funeral. I stared at the message, the image of that basement flashing in my mind, dim lighting, the hum of a dehumidifier, the faint smell of mildew. They wanted me close, but not too close. Useful, but invisible. As I set the phone down, a slow burn spread through my chest. They thought they were planning my next chapter. But for the first time in weeks, I realized I still had the pen. That night, the house was quiet except for the ticking of the old mantel clock. I sat at the kitchen table long after the tea in my cup had gone cold, staring at the shadows stretching across the walls. Harold's favorite chair stood empty, the cushion slightly indented from years of his presence. For days, I had moved through life like a ghost, letting decisions happen around me. But as I replayed Patrick's confident tone and Elaine's carefully chosen words, something shifted. I whispered into the stillness, "I am not a burden." The words felt unfamiliar, but powerful, like they'd been waiting for years to be spoken. I walked through each room slowly, running my fingers along the bookshelves we built together, the photographs on the walls, moments no realtor's brochure could ever capture. The house was more than wood and plaster, it was the map of my life. And I would not trade it for a damp basement and the illusion of family closeness. By the time I went to bed, a fragile but undeniable resolve had taken root. I didn't know what my plan was yet, but I knew one thing, I wouldn't let them decide my future for me. The next morning, sunlight spilled into Harold's study, dust motes swirling like tiny constellations. His scent still lingered, an earthy mix of old books, cedar, and the aftershave he wore every Sunday. I hesitated at the doorway, fingers brushing the frame, before stepping inside. For years, Harold had a bottom desk drawer he jokingly called the graveyard of boring paperwork. Whenever I offered to help sort it, he'd smile and say, "Leave it be, Maggie. It's all in order." Today, I pulled it open. Beneath years of neatly labeled tax returns and bank statements, I found a navy blue folder, thicker and heavier than the rest. Inside were investment summaries, legal documents, and, tucked between them, something unexpected, a property deed. My breath caught. The address was not in our state, not even in the country. It was for a villa in Malaga, Spain. Alongside it were glossy photographs, whitewashed walls, blue shutters, a terrace overlooking the sea, a garden lined with lemon trees. On the back of one photo, in Harold's careful handwriting, were the words, "A place where no one needs anything from us, just peace." At the bottom of the folder lay a sealed envelope with my name, the script instantly recognizable. I sat at Harold's desk, the letter trembling in my hands, knowing that whatever was inside would change everything. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. I slid my finger under the seal and unfolded the letter, recognizing Harold's steady, deliberate handwriting. "My dearest Maggie," it began. "If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer there to protect you from the noise and the vultures. I know our children. I love them, but I know them. They'll believe they know what's best for you, but they don't. You are not fragile. You are not to be managed." He went on to explain that everything they had built together, investments, the villa in Spain, the life they'd worked for, was meant for her to live, not defend. Go to the house. See the world we dreamed of. Choose yourself. And when you sit on that terrace with the sea in front of you, remember, I always believed in your strength. I read it 3 times, my eyes blurring. Harold had seen what I hadn't wanted to admit, that Patrick and Elaine would circle the moment they sensed opportunity. He had quietly prepared my escape, my freedom, without asking for permission or applause. For the first time since his passing, I felt something stir inside me that wasn't grief. It was possibility. And with it came a sharp clarity. I didn't just want to keep the house in Spain hidden from them, I wanted to go there. 2 days later, I sat in the leather-scented office of Judith Cole, Harold's longtime attorney. Sunlight spilled across the mahogany desk between us, catching the silver streak in her hair. She greeted me with a firm handshake and the kind of calm presence that made me feel I was finally in safe hands. "Your husband was meticulous," she said, unfolding a stack of documents. "He left nothing to chance." I kept Harold's letter in my purse, the paper already soft from my fingers tracing over the words. Judith explained that Harold had created a revocable trust in my name. All assets, the family home, investment accounts, and the Spanish villa were mine alone. Patrick and Elaine were never named as beneficiaries, except for a single life insurance policy. Then she slid another envelope across the desk. "He called this your Independence Fund," she said with a faint smile. Inside was proof of a separate account Harold had opened the year before, depositing a portion of his pension every month. The total was just over $50,000. He said it was for when Maggie finally lives for herself. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. Harold hadn't just left me resources, he'd left me permission. Judith leaned forward. "Do you want me to prepare the paperwork to reaffirm your ownership of the Spanish property?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "It's time." The moving truck arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, its diesel engine rumbling in the driveway. I stood upstairs by the window, watching the crew carry labeled boxes down the walk. Just as the first load hit the truck bed, Patrick's yellow sedan pulled in behind them. He stepped out in his serious meeting suit, a thick manila folder under his arm. His face tightened the moment he saw the movers. I met him at the front door wearing the red dress Harold had always loved, my hair freshly styled, my expression unreadable. "What is going on?" he snapped, stepping past me without an invitation. His eyes darted to the stacks of boxes by the stairs. "These are mine, my childhood things. Why are you packing them?" Because I thought you'd want them, I said evenly. Memories are precious, and I won't be needing them where I'm going. He frowned. You haven't even signed the sale documents yet. Ethan's buyer is expecting an answer by noon. I crossed my arms. Patrick, where exactly did you tell him the money was going? His silence told me everything. Did you and Elaine already divide it, minus the imaginary mortgage and maintenance costs you invented? He shifted uncomfortably. We were trying to help. No. You were trying to manage me like a spreadsheet. Before he could respond, my phone rang. Elaine's voice came sharp through the speaker. Mom, this is insane. There's a moving truck at my house with that old piano I never use. You begged for it when you were 8, I replied. I thought you wanted to keep the memories. I don't want the piano. And Patrick says you're not selling the house. That's correct, I cut in. I can afford more than you think. I'm leaving, but not for your basement. By the time the last box was loaded, the morning air had shifted. The sky was pale blue, almost gentle, as if the world hadn't just witnessed the unraveling of my children's carefully laid plans. Patrick paced in the driveway, still on the phone with Elaine, his free hand slicing the air in agitation. I didn't watch for long. Inside, I walked through each room slowly, touching the walls, the furniture, the photographs that held decades of life. I left behind the heavy furniture, the china set, even Harold's old armchair, things that belonged to the house more than they belonged to me. The car to the airport arrived right on time. The driver, a quiet man with kind eyes, loaded my luggage without comment. I stepped into the back seat, looking up at the second-story windows one last time. No tears came, only a strange lightness in my chest. On the flight to Madrid, I chose Harold's favorite seat by the window. As the plane climbed above the clouds, the land fell away beneath us, and for the first time in months, I could breathe without the weight of someone else's expectations pressing on my ribs. By the time I landed in Malaga, the Mediterranean sun was spilling gold across the tiled airport floors. Just beyond the customs gate stood a woman holding a sign with my name in bold letters, Marina Vega. She had a warm smile, eyes that crinkled at the corners, and a steady handshake that felt like a welcome rather than a formality. Your husband spoke of you often, she said as she guided me toward her small, sun-faded car. He wanted everything perfect for when you arrived. We drove along winding coastal roads, the sea glittering on one side, hills dotted with whitewashed villages on the other. Marina pointed out olive groves, hidden beaches, and old stone churches as if she were showing me chapters of a book Harold had left unfinished. When we reached the villa, I couldn't move at first. It was exactly as in the photographs, white walls softened by climbing bougainvillea, blue shutters thrown open to the sea breeze, a terrace that seemed to spill right into the horizon. Lemon trees framed the garden, their scent mixing with the salt air. Marina pressed a brass key into my hand. This is yours, she said simply. Harold called it your reward for a life well lived. Inside, sunlight poured through arched windows, pooling on cool clay tiles. The kitchen counters were lined with fresh bread, olive oil, cheese, and a bottle of wine. For the first time in a long while, I felt the tension leave my shoulders. Here, there were no lists of demands, no quiet judgments, only space to exist. The first 4 days in the villa passed in a rhythm so gentle I barely recognized my own life. Mornings began with the scent of lemon blossoms drifting in through the open shutters. Marina and I watered the garden together, her soft Spanish mingling with the sound of the waves below. I took short walks to the village bakery, where the owner began greeting me by name, always pressing an extra roll into my bag for later. I didn't check emails. I didn't answer calls. My phone lay silent on the kitchen counter until the evening of the 4th day. The sun was sliding into the sea when it rang, the screen lighting up with a name I hadn't seen since Christmas, Sophie. I hesitated, then answered. Grandma, her voice broke slightly. I just found out. Mom told me you've been paying for my college all this time. She never said it was from you. I leaned against the terrace railing, watching the horizon fade to gold. I didn't need credit, I said. I just wanted to help. There was a pause, then a rush of words. I'm sorry. I let them convince me you were fragile, that you needed space. But space wasn't what I gave you, I abandoned you. You're here now, I told her gently. That's what matters. 3 weeks later, I stood at the arrivals gate in Malaga Airport, scanning the crowd until I saw her. Sophie looked different, gone were the polished curls and designer tote from holiday photos. She wore worn jeans, a plain white t-shirt, and her hair was swept into a messy bun. When her eyes found mine, she called out, "Grandma," and ran straight into my arms. Her hug was strong and real, as if she'd been waiting years to give it. "You look amazing," she said, pulling back. "Radiant. Did you cut your hair?" "Just a trim," I smiled. Marina insisted. During the drive to the villa, Sophie pressed her face to the car window like a child, pointing out every view of the sea, every cluster of whitewashed houses. "So this is where Grandpa wanted to bring you," she murmured. When we pulled into the driveway, she went quiet. The bougainvillea, the lemon trees, the terrace opening to the Mediterranean, she took it all in. "He knew, didn't he?" she said softly. "He knew you'd need this." That evening, Marina cooked a welcome dinner, paella fragrant with saffron, bread still warm from the oven. We ate on the terrace, the waves below steady as a heartbeat. "Tell me about your life here," Sophie said between bites. "I want to know everything." And for the first time in years, someone wasn't asking me what I could give, they were asking who I was, and they genuinely wanted to hear the answer. The days after Sophie's arrival unfolded like a long-forgotten dream. We walked through the village each morning, buying fresh bread and olives from vendors who now greeted me like an old friend. Sophie tried her first Spanish phrases, laughing when she stumbled, and I found myself laughing with her, deep, unguarded laughter I hadn't known in years. One afternoon, we sat on the beach, the sand warm beneath our feet. Sophie was quiet for a long moment before speaking. "Grandma. I don't want to go back. Not just yet. I'm tired of pretending. I want to stay, if you'll have me." I studied her face, the sincerity in her eyes. She wasn't the filtered, guarded girl from family gatherings. She was open, raw, and searching. "Then stay," I said simply. "We'll figure it out together." She smiled, and something inside me settled. This was not the family I had imagined, but it was the family I had chosen, and the one that had chosen me. In the evenings, we'd sit on the terrace with Marina, the air scented with lemon and the sea. Sophie asked about my writing, and I told her about the memoir I'd begun, how it was less about loss and more about reclaiming yourself when the world tries to define you. I realized then that Harold's gift had been more than a house or a bank account, it was the freedom to step into a life that was mine alone. One night, as the sun dipped into the horizon, Sophie rested her head on my shoulder. "Grandma," she whispered, "I'm glad you didn't listen to them." I looked out at the endless blue, the steady pulse of the waves, and felt a peace so complete it almost hurt. It is never too late to choose yourself. Never too late to begin again. And never too late to be truly seen. In the quiet arc of Maggie Lawson's journey lies a truth that resonates far beyond one woman's life. Loyalty is not about blind compliance to those who share your blood, it is about honoring the love that stands by you without agenda, the kind Harold left behind in both word and deed. Courage, in her story, was not loud or defiant for its own sake, it was the steady refusal to be diminished, the decision to walk away from what was convenient for others and step into what was right for herself. And truth, perhaps the hardest of all, meant facing the reality that family ties can be twisted, that love can be used as leverage, and that the people you trust most can forget to see you as a whole person. Maggie's choice to leave behind the life others scripted for her was not an act of abandonment, but of reclamation. It reminds us that self-respect is built in the moments when you refuse to trade your dignity for acceptance. She found freedom not just in a sunlit villa by the sea, but in the quiet knowledge that she was living on her own terms. The lesson is simple, but profound. Your worth is not determined by how useful you are to others, nor should your future be dictated by their fears or ambitions. There will always be voices telling you to shrink, to settle, to make yourself small enough to fit their comfort. But it is never too late to choose yourself, to speak your truth, and to stand firmly in the life you deserve. As Maggie discovered, the most important loyalty you can ever give is to your own heart.